Eating carrots gives you night vision. First of all, eating fruits is a great way to improve your health and well-being, but let's squash the myth that munching on carrots will magically give you superhero night vision. Sorry to burst your bubble, but chowing down on a bag of baby carrots won't have you seeing in the dark like a Batman wannabe. However, carrots are packed with vitamin A, which is good for eye health, but the whole night vision thing basically started during World War II. You see, the British had this idea to spread the rumor that carrots could grant night vision, but it wasn't just for shits and giggles. The goal was to help their pilots take down German planes more accurately by improving their sight. But the real secret to their success was actually the sneaky use of radar technology. By crediting their pilots' newfound accuracy to carrot consumption, they cleverly kept the true power of radar technology under wraps, leaving the enemy scratching their heads and probably eating carrots by the truckload. Chameleons change color. If you're a huge fan of wildlife documentaries or Nat Geo Wild, then you've probably heard a lot that chameleons majorly change color just to blend in with their surroundings. While this might be true, it is definitely not the complete story. Chameleons are like the mood rings of the animal kingdom. They change color based on their emotions, like a reptilian mood board. They also use their changing hues to regulate their body temperature, as a warning signal to potential threats, and of course to impress potential mates with their vibrant fashion sense. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Chameleons don't have an unlimited color palette. Nope, they can't turn into every shade under the sun. Their color-changing abilities are limited to specific ranges based on their species and the pigments in their skin cells. Bats are blind. Now, this is one of those cases where people make up a story totally out of assumption, and the rest of the world just goes along with it because it kinda makes sense. You see, bats have a special skill called echolocation, which is basically like a superhero's sonar ability. Bats typically rely heavily on this skill for navigation and hunting, which means that they can swoop and zoom through pitch-black caves like it's a walk in the park. So people typically assumed that they were blind. The crazy fact is, their vision is actually 3 times better than humans. However, echolocation does not replace the vision of a bat. Rather, it complements it because bats can easily create a mental map of their surroundings with pinpoint accuracy. It's like having GPS and night vision all rolled into one. Bulls hate the color red. You've probably heard that bulls charge like angry horned missiles at red capes, and while this is mostly the case, especially in rodeos and bullfights, the truth is that it's actually all bull. This is because bulls are actually colorblind to the color red, which means they can't even see the color. Bulls actually lack the retina receptor to actually see red, but they can see other colors like yellow, green, and blue. What actually makes bulls charge angrily at the matador during bullfighting is the movement of the matador, which the bull perceives as a threat and not the color of the cape. That's all just for theatrics and has been popularized by bullfighting and the media. Plus, bulls actually react to motion, so it'd make more sense to say they're pissed because the guy in the ring keeps acting like he's trying to pick a fight. And you already know a bull would never back down from a fight, especially when it thinks there is a threat. Taste buds are only on your tongue. For the longest time, we've been fed the idea that our tongue is the exclusive nightclub for flavors, thanks to those tiny bumps you can see and feel on the surface of the tongue. But that's just a tiny part of the whole story, and you can blame this misinformation on the oversimplified diagrams of the tongue in biology textbooks. For sure, your tongue is indeed the VIP lounge where flavors get their all-access pass, but apparently you can also find some taste buds in other parts of your mouth and throat. You've actually got them up on the roof of your mouth, your cheeks, and the back of your throat. So the next time you enjoy a meal, just know that your whole mouth is partying and not just your tongue. We only use 10% of our brains. This is really one of those myths that have refused to die like a bad movie sequel. It is literally a lie motivational speakers use to try to inspire people to unlock their hidden potential. For example, if you're just using 10% of your brain, imagine what you could do with the other 90%. Well, this is as scientifically accurate as believing the moon is made of cheese. The truth is that we actually use all parts of our brains, although not all at once. The different parts of our brains are responsible for various functions, from regulating breathing and heartbeat to processing emotions and solving complex problems. It's like how the legs are only used for running and walking and the eyes just for seeing. So while it isn't every part of the brain that is active at the same time, brain scans show activity happening throughout the brain even when you're asleep. Technically, if you only use 10% of your brain, it'd simply mean you're brain dead. Mount Everest is the tallest mountain on Earth. Contrary to what your geography teacher had drilled into you, Mount Everest is actually not the tallest mountain on Earth. That title goes to Mauna Kea, an inactive volcano in Hawaii. You see, Mount Everest is technically seen as the tallest mountain because it measures 8,849 meters in height when you measure from sea level. But when you measure from the sea floor, then Mauna Kea takes the crown because it is 10,205 meters. However, nearly half of Mauna Kea is playing hide-and-seek beneath the Pacific Ocean, so while Everest gets all the fame and glory above sea level, Mauna Kea is the true giant lurking underwater like a sneaky mountain ninja. It's like finding out the star quarterback is actually shorter than the chess club president once you get them to take off their helmets. Slaves built the Pyramid of Giza. Suppose you're a fan of watching ancient Egyptian movies. In that case, you'd be under the idea that the pyramids of Giza were built by enslaved people dragging massive blocks of stone under the hot, scorching sun with soldiers whipping and beating them like dogs. Well, you couldn't be more wrong. According to recent archaeological findings, the pyramids were actually built by skilled laborers and architects who were well paid and fed, probably eating better than many Egyptians at the time. Archaeologists even uncovered entire villages built for these workers, complete with bakeries, breweries, and healthcare facilities. Pretty much what Elon Musk does nowadays with SpaceX. These guys weren't just hauling stone, they had their little communities with all the amenities you could dream of in ancient times. The reason why they signed up for such back-breaking labor was that, aside from the steady paycheck, building the pharaoh's tomb was considered a patriotic duty and an honor. It's like the ancient Egyptian version of serving your country, only with a lot more limestone and fewer parades. Knuckle cracking causes arthritis. Growing up, you were probably warned and told constantly that cracking your knuckles would lead to arthritis. It's a bit like the warning that sitting too close to the TV makes you blind. Well, luckily for you, you can't get arthritis from cracking your knuckles because there's no scientific evidence to support this claim. When you crack your knuckles, what actually happens is that you're stretching the joints, which creates a gas bubble that pops, resulting in that satisfying sound you hear. It's like your joints are having their own little party, complete with popping balloons. So it's not your bones snapping or your joints grinding together like pepper mills, as many people might think. However, excessive knuckle cracking might lead to reduced grip strength and swelling in your hands, so maybe don't turn it into a hobby. Sharks can smell a drop of blood from miles away. While the idea of sharks smelling a single drop of blood from miles away makes for great shark movies and thrilling tales, it is honestly over-exaggerated. Sure, it's fun to imagine a shark detecting your paper cut from the next county over, but the reality isn't quite that dramatic. No doubt, sharks have a fantastic sense of smell thanks to their nostrils, called nares, which are completely separated from their mouths and are used exclusively for smelling. They're like the Sherlock Holmes of the ocean, but instead of solving crimes, they're hunting for lunch. In reality, though, they can only detect blood from about a quarter of a mile away, and that's in a vast amount of water. Also, sharks are more likely to detect the blood of their usual prey and diet, like fish, and when it does detect the blood, it often triggers a feeding response that makes them more active and curious. So, while sharks have a good nose for finding dinner, the bloodhound of the sea myth is a bit over the top. Eating at night makes you gain weight. Waking up to eat the pizza you left after dinner in the middle of the night is something you've probably at least done once or twice in your life. And then you hit the gym the next morning and worked out like a mad person, all in the name of losing the pounds you gained at night. Well, not to burst your bubble or anything, but eating at night does not make you gain extra weight. It's really about your overall calorie intake. Calories are calories, whether you eat them during the day or at midnight. The reason it might seem like nighttime eating leads to weight gain is that you often head straight to bed afterward, becoming less active and burning fewer calories. Plus, chowing down too close to bedtime can mess with your sleep, And poor sleep is linked to, you guessed it, weight gain. Water conducts electricity. First thing first, pure water is actually a very poor conductor of electricity. If you had a glass of 100% pure H2O, you'd find that it doesn't conduct electricity well at all. And this is because pure water lacks the ions necessary to carry out an electrical charge. However, most of the water you encounter, like tap water, rainwater, and seawater, is not pure. So when the impurities break down into ions, then you have your electrical charge. So it is actually the dissolved impurities in the water, like minerals and salts, that conduct the electricity and not the water itself. Camels' humps store water. Growing up, you were probably told that a camel's hump is basically a water tank sloshing around with H2O. Well, that isn't true at all. The hump on the camel's back is actually a fat reserve that the camel can metabolize into energy and water when food and water are scarce. This adaptation is the only reason why camels can survive days and even weeks without eating or drinking anything. So instead of a water tank, think of their hump as a concentrated energy source that keeps them hydrated and strong during their desert journeys. Microwave ovens cause cancer. The debate over microwave ovens and their supposed cancer-causing capabilities has sparked plenty of arguments, but to set the record straight, microwave ovens are not plotting to give you cancer. They are really just misunderstood kitchen appliances that are just trying to make life easier. You see, microwaves actually make use of non-ionizing radiation, which means they don't even have enough energy to remove tightly bound electrons or directly damage DNA in cells. Now, microwave ovens work by causing the moisture in your food to vibrate, producing heat, so the waves themselves are not retained in your meal. The only major concern about using microwaves is actually ensuring that the food is evenly and thoroughly heated to avoid foodborne illnesses. Mice like cheese. You've seen it in cartoons, movies, and probably every mousetrap ad ever. Mice going crazy for a chunk of cheese. This was practically a plot staple in every Tom and Jerry episode. But in truth, mice aren't actually that into cheese. In the wild, they don't even see the cheese to eat and mostly survive on grains, fruits, and seeds. They're more like tiny, furry vegetarians. This myth probably started because mice were opportunistic nibblers and would eat anything they could find in people's homes, including cheese. If they had been given a choice, they'd probably pass on the cheese plate. But it is what it is. Beggars can't be choosers. Tomatoes are vegetables. Tomatoes have been thrown into your salad mix so many times that you've probably begun to think it's just vegetables, but the reality is that it is actually a fruit. A fruit basically develops from the flower of a plant and contains seeds, and this is exactly how tomatoes grow, which technically makes it a fruit. This belief probably also started when the US Supreme Court ruled that tomatoes were vegetables for tax purposes in 1893. So unfortunately, the poor guys have been called vegetables for so long that they've actually lost their true identity. Columbus discovered America. It was another day in history class, and your teacher had just started talking about the discovery of America by a man named Christopher Columbus. However, saying that Christopher Columbus discovered America is a bit like giving credit to someone for finding your house while you're already living in it. Even though all the history books say America was officially discovered in 1492, the place was already home to millions of indigenous people for thousands of years. So when Columbus set foot on the land, he was more like a surprise guest crashing a long-running party. Also, recent studies have revealed that a certain Viking explorer known as Leif Erikson, together with his Norse buddies, had already popped by North America about 500 years before Columbus had even thought about setting sail. They even had a settlement in Newfoundland where Viking artifacts were found in Canada. All deserts are hot. All your life, you've probably assumed that all deserts are vast, scorching landscapes where you can fry an egg on a rock and feel like you're in a giant oven set to broil. However, not all deserts are hot enough to make you feel like you're auditioning for Survivor. Antarctica is one big icy desert where you'd be more likely to see a penguin than a cactus. There are also semi-arid deserts, which are like the diet soda of deserts. Not too hot, not too cold, but still dry enough to make you thirsty. And let's not forget coastal deserts, where you get to enjoy a lovely sea breeze while still living in a rain-starved environment. You see, deserts are defined by their lack of rainfall, not their temperature. So if a place has less than 10 inches of rain per year, it's technically a desert. Shaving hair makes it grow back thicker. Shaving off your entire hair does not make your hair grow back thicker, darker, or faster. Nope, not even a little bit. It's like thinking that cutting your grass will make it grow into a jungle. What happens is that your new hair has a blunt tip at the base from where you cut it the last time, so it begins to grow out from the blunt tip, which gives a feeling of thickness when you run your hands through it. Hormones are practically the only thing that determines how thick, full, and long your hair would be. Plus, if you're shaving for the first time as a teenager, your hair might actually be getting thicker and darker over time. But that's just puberty doing its thing, not your razor working some follicle voodoo.